One, thank you very much for joining us. Today we have a great guest with us. Randy Boner is our Customer Success Manager for Infinx. Hi, Randy.
Hey, how's it going, Deb? Happy to be here.
Great, thanks for joining us. So the more complex the specialty, the more essential that eligibility verification becomes on two fronts, of course, patient care and revenue generation. And timely patient care is always important, but it could be said that as a patient progresses through the care journey and ends up with a specialty, timely care has become of the essence, and waiting for delivery of that care because basic processes like eligibility have not been conducted efficiently starts to have more and more serious consequences for the patient. So verifying eligibility is step one to that care, and that's one reason why we wanted to talk about it today. So let's start by talking about the barriers to that efficiency. Can you describe for us, Randy, the pros and cons to a SaaS-only eligibility and benefit solution for complex specialties versus those that are part of their EHR system?
Yeah, of course. So just like you said, patient care is always of the essence. And, providers and, different hospital systems, they always try to find a way to expedite that patient care. And oftentimes SaaS-only products, just technology-only products, are a viable solution because they do give you real-time results with the click of a button. So there's definitely obviously some attraction there. However, especially when you start to deal with more complex specialties, you might have certain exceptions or certain levels of benefits that you need to obtain that SaaS-only offering won't give you. That SaaS-only offering is going to give you their standard eligibility benefits, regardless of any specialty. So obviously physical therapy versus radiology versus infertility, those are way different, and if you have one single product that's giving you those eligibility benefits, you're not going to get everything you need. So I would say the pro of a SaaS product is you do get fast results when they do give you results. However, they don't always give you the results that you need. So if you don't have the staff in place to handle those exceptions, you're either left with patient delayed care, or if you do have the staff, then your staff obviously has to work and do all the extra work that you kind of wanted that SaaS product to take care of you from the beginning. And that's really the con of a SaaS-only product. And Infinx offers this, it's a software plus specialist approach to eligibility benefits, which really does give you that complete coverage, right? So we do have the automated systems in place. We're connected with different payers across the nation. We have AI machine learning that does their own type of, deterministic algorithms. So we do have a level of automation, but, we work with a lot of complex specialties. And we know that there's no way we can 100% rely on our automated system to give us everything we need, especially if we're working with a new complex specialty. So our full coverage approach does allow you to alleviate any staff, that might need to handle exceptions if you use a SaaS-only product. Now you just give it to Infinx. We'll either complete it through automation or, if any exceptions fall through the cracks, we have a team there that, will give you that complete coverage.
And you said something very important, the more fine-tuned that the specialties become, like neurology isn't just neurology anymore, right? So the more fine-tuned they become, the more you're going to need to have to rely on something like this solution.
Yeah, that's correct. And, every, complex specialty has their own sets of needs. And it's impossible, and those needs could really change by payer too. So it's impossible to rely solely on, a technology-only approach when there's a certain type of, analysis that might need to take place to obtain the correct level of benefits. And that's why our full coverage approach does really account for that.
So one of the barriers that people have in their minds, which really isn't true, is that there's complexity in implementing their systems, that it's going to take a long time, that it's going to take a lot of bandwidth. But there are a lot of solutions out there that are easy to implement, they're fast, they're efficient. So talk to us about the patient access plus software plus specialist approach, and talk to us about how it does provide that complete coverage that you've referred to.
Yeah, absolutely. So for one, implementation is super easy. If you have an EHR, we can easily integrate that with an API or an HL7 integration. And that's bi-directional. So when you're talking about patient care, the least amount of data entry that's, required, the better. So right off the bat, we can implement, with our solution and reduce all the manual data entry that's needed for eligibility benefits. And that's just one part of it, but it's important. The second part is the complete coverage. So, we do have, like I said, automation in place. That could be RPA, that could be AI, machine learning, all that good stuff. And we do get levels of automation for all of our clients. But we also have a team of specialists. So we'll have, very detailed process discovery. If we're working with this payer in this state, which portal do we need to go to? Which access do we need? Stuff like that, that really gets fine-tuned to those details. So we do give you that complete coverage. And no matter what type of request is sent to us, we can handle it.
So payers, you have the interaction with the payers, and that's becoming increasingly fragmented, right? So it makes process discovery and identifying requirements even more important. And we have talked before about portals and passwords and different requirements, and the staff doesn't know who needs what, and it changes all the time. So what do providers need to know about this foundation of revenue generation?
Yeah, absolutely. So the importance of process discovery with complex specialty is very critical. So, if we're working with a new specialty, we might not exactly know everything that's required for us to obtain. So things like, if there's service limits involved, if we need to, kind of get the types of dosage or frequency, levels of detail that, might not be consistent with other specialties that we work with. So it's important that we do process discovery. We identify the requirements that is needed to, have success with our clients. And then once we identify those requirements, how are we going to obtain them? And it could be through portals, getting the proper access. It could be through calling if needed, because obviously not everything can be done through a portal. As much as we want it to be done through a portal, there's just some things that, you can't get from a portal. And that's really, the important part of it is that you have to understand that there's not one approach that could give you everything you need. But Infinix, what we do is our approach covers everything, all the different types of scenarios, whether it be calling, portals, the level of automation, we got you covered.
Well, that's certainly a great benefit, given the fact that if you have multiple payers, multiple portals, multiple non-portals, multiple requirements for every portal, that you're going to have someone who can sort all that out, right? Where you're talking about hours and hours and hours of time.
That's correct. And it even gets, more wonky than that when you start talking about, I work with a lot of physical therapy groups, across the nation. So we could be working with the same payer in different states, and then that same payer could have different portals, different workflows, and different requirements. So you're talking about a different process needed by payer, by state. It gets very detailed.
So do you have any real life examples you can give us of payer requirements changing based, I would assume, as the patient's care changes, right? They may even have requirements that change along the journey.
Yeah, of course. Going back to my physical therapy example, there's some plans that out there that they don't require an authorization until a certain amount of visits. So, I think Aetna, I believe, is a good example where they require, maybe 5 visits, for example. They allow 5 visits, for the patient before an authorization is required. So after that 5th visit, an auth is required. So if you're talking about a SaaS only solution, if, you're checking auth requirements for that patient, and it does, whatever type of automation it has, and it says, oh, auth isn't required. So it'll tell you auth is not required, but there's no way that that product could know that that patient has actually already used all of their, buffer visits, and now an authorization is required. So those types of changing dynamics is really, it makes it hard for those SaaS only products. So, again, our software plus specialist approach can take care of that.
So good to know humans are still needed. That's really good news. So what about workflows? How important is it for the product to integrate with existing EHR, because everyone has to deal with their EHR?
Yeah, no, I would say it's super important. We always go back to patient care. And if you're integrated with our product, that means that data can flow in real time. So you're alleviating the need for data entry, which takes time. You don't want your patient sitting there. Even let's say it's a walk-in patient. So you have a patient come in and you need to get their eligibility benefits done. You don't want to have to enter in all kind of, data into different portals or call. With a click of a button, if you're integrated, you can send Infinix all of the patient demographic information, including the clinicals, and then we can work that request and send it all directly back into your EHR, exactly where you need it to. So integrating is super important. And not only is it important for the quickness of it, but it also sends over the exact information that we need every time. So there's never going to be a situation where, oh, we didn't get the patient's, phone number, or we didn't get, the right member ID or stuff like that. Like we get a standard, set of information that we need because we define that in our process discovery. So every time you send us a request, we get everything we need.
So that in and of itself is going to save, I can imagine, if I have to call and they don't answer, and then I have to wait, that could be 15 minutes, half an hour, hours that you've saved just on that, filling out those few fields, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. So what happens if are there cases where an EHR integration is not a viable option? And if so, what happens?
Unfortunately, there are, there's not always, whether it could be technology capability, maybe you don't have the capability to integrate with our product, that happens, or it could be a cost thing. Maybe it's just not the right timing, or maybe you're going through an upgrade with your EHR. Different situations, don't allow for integrations all the time. It's unfortunate, but it happens. But with Infinix, so we have a web-based portal. So if you needed to use, a portal instead of, sending over all the information automatically, you could. We have a web-based portal. You could log in and manually enter the data that we need. So we do give you that option. And again, it gives you that complete coverage, no matter what type of, practice you are. If you're, a huge, physical therapy network that can integrate and, has the budget for that, we can handle you. If you're a small, orthopedic practice with a few locations, maybe the portal is the best way to go for you. So we kind of give you that flexibility to implement what fits your needs best.
Before we go any further, I wanted to invite the people attending today. If you have questions, please just write them directly into the chat and we will answer them as we go along. So explain to us some of the important requirements. I'm sure you have requirements so that Infinix can successfully ramp up and get eligibility and benefits for practices. So when you go in, what is it that you need from the practice?
Well, yeah, we're typically always going to need the patient demographic information. That includes their insurance, is it primary or secondary, includes their member ID. But mainly, we need CPT codes, and, working with a lot of my clients, being able to send over CPT codes and ICD-10 codes through an integration is very important. And oftentimes I find that that's almost a pain point, but maybe they don't have the CPT codes that live in their system. Maybe the CPT codes live in the actual clinical notes. I find that pretty often, but CPT codes are required. But if there's not CPT codes that live in your system, we do have workarounds for that. We could do some type of mapping on the back end. Maybe there's something inside the EHR we can pull and kind of map that to a certain list of CPT codes. And, I was working with a fertility clinic, last week, and they checked for 9 CPT codes on every one of their requests. No, I'm sorry, 19, not 9. So it's a very big number sometimes. And a lot of the times, like in that example, they're checking for CPT codes, but they don't know exactly what the patient's going to wind up doing. So they're kind of shotgun approaching, like, oh, these are all those CPT codes that could possibly, be used. They check them, and then, after they come in, they know what they're going to do. So that type of thing is pretty common, but yeah, getting CPT codes is very important. And any type of other requirements. So like if we're working with oncology and, medications, stuff like that, we're going to need their dosage, their frequency. If we're working with physical therapy, we're going to need, how many visits are they asking to come in, stuff like that. And again, going back to the SaaS only product is that, if that product has a standard offering, they might not get you what you need, but you also might not give them what they need because their product just doesn't kind of allow for that. Whereas our product has flexibility to kind of account for any type of, custom requirements, that allows for new specialties to work with us.
So one of the things that is happening, of course, it's been happening for quite a while, is that a specialty isn't just a specialty anymore, right? It's a combination of many, many tiny specialties. So for example, used to be neurology was neurology. Well, now it's spine and it's brain and it's pain and it's, many other pieces to it. So talk to us, if you have a SaaS product and it can't align with that complex specialty success criteria, talk to us about how Infinix software plus specialist approach allows for that, where just a SaaS product alone might not be able to.
Right. No, that's a really good point. So let's say that we're working with a orthopedic practice. They might have some imaging come through to us, but they also will have some surgeries. And obviously those aren't going to be exactly the same. The SaaS product is most likely going to give you the same eligibility benefits, every time. Whereas, our process discovery approach is, we'll go through each one of those different situations, and by CPT code, there might be certain forms that we need to, fill out and send in with our requests whenever we upload to the portal. There might be, different portals to use for different types of disciplines, stuff like that. So our process discovery is very important. We identify all the requirements, and then we figure out how we're going to attain those requirements. And, that's the part that kind of, goes into our SOPs and our processes. But our goal is to be aligned in our workflows, and we want to, obtain the benefits in the most efficient way possible. And that's how we do it, is through process discovery.
So we have a couple of questions here from our attendees. So we are an oncologist office, and the patient journey is usually never in a straight line. Is this product one that would help us because sometimes they change drastically from their initial treatment plan to the current treatment plan?
Yeah, we can. So, that happens all the time, not just in oncology, but you have a patient come in and you think they're going to be doing one thing. They might see the doctor and find out they need to do other things. So with our product, we can either edit existing requests. That could be adding CPT codes, because sometimes, you might not know that you need to add a CPT code to the request until that patient comes in. So our product does allow for that. And then we could, sending new requests, editing old requests, stuff like that. We could definitely account for that. But yeah, changing patient care after a request has been sent in is pretty typical for us, and we know how to deal with it.
So I'd like to go back and ask you a question. We were talking about process discovery earlier, and we were talking about the fact that we need to make sure that all level of the required benefits are able to be obtained. Can you talk to us about what those levels are? Like, take a little bit deeper dive for us so that we can understand. I guess that means there are levels that are to be missed, right?
Right. So let's just pretend that we're looking at a portal. Let's just say Availity, for instance. If you look up a patient on Availity, there's different levels of benefits for all kind of different service types. So if we're working with a complex specialty, we could be getting different requests that requires us to pull different levels of benefits from different levels of service types. And that's really what we mean by process discovery is, what discipline is it? What types of benefits do we need to get? And because we don't want to give you the wrong benefits, because obviously there's a lot of benefits out there. And that's one issue that I've seen with SaaS only products, is that they'll give you a standard level of benefits, but it might not be the correct one. Whereas, we make sure that we give you the correct level of benefits every time.
So when it comes to, I realize I'm putting a finer stroke on these things, but I think you've given us a lot of really important information. So we were talking about the fact that it's easy to implement and it's fast and efficient. Can you compare and contrast for us what is fast and efficient for the Patient Access Plus product as opposed to others that you've seen in the field?
Yeah, well, so we cut down on calling time. So, one main reason why people will, come to Infinix to, do eligibility benefits, because they want their own staff reaching out to patients with patient, outreach, and they really have that touch on patient care. Whereas all this back end stuff, they don't want to deal with because it takes so much time. we're very efficient in what we do, but it also takes time. So, going out to the portals, calling, doing all the back end stuff before that patient even comes in really allows, those practices to focus on their patients, the patient care, the relationships with their patients, and really grow their business.
So is there eligibility verification that you have seen that has become much more difficult than you anticipated? Is there any such thing, or do you think that the product really has set it up and aligned it so well that if you have the information like we discussed, you have the requirements, that this solution plus staff basically is going to be able to get the eligibility figured out in a timely manner?
Yeah, no, and it has become more difficult. The more specialties that I work with personally, there's always some new situation that we have to account for. Going back to my physical therapy example, if an authorization is required after a certain amount of visits, how will a SaaS product know how many visits that patient has already come in for? Stuff like that. And that's if you're integrated, that information can flow back and forth, and our team could know that. But a SaaS only product couldn't know that level of detail when it comes to patient care. So requirements that change based on patient's care is one of the biggest hurdles I would say that a SaaS product has to account for, where our product is aligned to hurdle those different requirements.
So we have a couple more questions. One is, we have been wanting to consider a product like this, but we have the old guard in our practice. How do you convince the older physicians that a solution like this is worth the cost?
I would really always go back to the patient. So how will working with Infinx improve patient care, improve their patient experience, and help you grow the business? So I would say that if you were to use Infinx, we would handle all the back end stuff. We would make sure the patient's eligibility benefits are always covered before they even walk into the door. And that allows your staff to be reallocated to focus on the patient's experience, which at the end of the day is the most important part of your business.
The next question is, our practice is located on a border of 2 states. Is that something that this product can handle?
Yes, we can. So we can work with multiple states. So the way we configure it, just to give you a fine level of detail, is that, we get your facility information for each one of your facilities. And, we know if they're in network, out of network, all that good stuff. So yes, we can work in as many states as your practice is in.
Well, thank you, Randy. This has been a boatload of information. Really appreciate your time. And I think we answered a few questions. And thank you so much for the great information.
Absolutely. This is great, Deb. Happy to be here.
Great. Thanks, Randy. Thanks, everyone, for attending today.